Thank you so much, Michael Volkin, for coming back to the Entrepreneurs podcast. Just in case people don't know who you are, can you tell them what do you do?
Yeah, well, I'm a serial entrepreneur. Most of my time is spent being a fractional CMO for other companies. That's part-time CMO. Um, about 30% of my job is entrepreneur coaching. So I get on the phone with uh, CEOs or other executives to help them through certain issues. Maybe they're trying to launch a product, or maybe they're having a sticking point or a problem with an employee, and I have to guide them and coach them through certain projects. And the other part of my job, if I have the time, is to build my own companies, which I've built and sold 6 of my own companies to this point. So I've always got ideas brewing in my mind.
Oh yeah, you shared that last time about the ideas that you have and how the first thing you do is you write them down, and then when you write them down, then you start looking up companies that already do it and see
Yeah.
what you do differently. What got you into that mode? Because sometimes people, because I believe that's called market research, looking up your competitors. Some people don't do that until they are asked to come up with a business plan. What's the reason that you do it in the idea stage?
Yeah. Well, I do it because I can, and I have the skill set as a marketer to know how to do something like that. But there's no real order to the way you should launch a company. I mean, there is some structure, but um, a lot of times I have issues with clients of mine who try to launch something, an idea prematurely without doing research, and they spent tens of thousands of dollars getting to a point and they realize it's not a viable business model. So I try to do as much research as I can up front without expending too much of my own money or time. And from there, I can just develop it and make it as unique as I want it to be via branding or any other kind of marketing initiative. But I try not to put the cart before the horse, so to speak, when launching companies. I do all my research up front.
Yeah, because I know one of the things, it seems like you can research it, but you don't know for sure what's best for you until you get into it. One thing that I recall from our conversation is the you started out as a sole proprietor in the real estate industry. You were doing amazing, but in your mind, all right, I have to become a franchise. But ultimately, you discovered that the franchise business model wasn't for you, but you
Yeah.
conveyed that if somebody needed help with marketing and sales, then
Hmm.
maybe the franchise business model is for them. Uh,
Yeah.
what is something? All right, how does somebody know that? It might seem like an intuitive answer or question, but how does
Yeah.
somebody know if they need help with marketing and sales?
Yeah, this is a really good question. So just to recap for the audience, I used to run a franchise company. I had an idea for a real estate company. Turns out no one else was doing it. I franchised my idea. Um, Basically, I had a successful real estate company, and then I franchised it and had other people buy the rights to basically my business processes. That's what a franchise is. And then I sold, I think it was like 15 franchises in 5 different states. I wound up selling it to an investor group, but and it's still going today. This was many years ago. But to answer your question, I think um, if you are a business owner and marketing is not your forte, then you should look into a franchise. Also, if you are not a prior business owner and always had a fantasy of like owning your own business, kind of like people have a fantasy of writing their own book, but they never quite get to it. If you have a little bit of cash set aside, being a franchisee, buying a franchise might be the way to go. It's basically a business in a box. You pay the fee and there's still work to do, but you don't have to do all that stuff like branding and coming up with marketing strategies and all that stuff that provides a headache for a lot of business owners. If you want that kind of outsourced to somebody you would pay and, just by giving them a franchise fee, then that might be an opportunity for you. I personally didn't like it because there's a lot of restrictions. I think that a very valuable part of being a business owner is being able to sell it someday for a good chunk of money. A lot of times there's restrictions on franchise agreements where you can't do that. So I wasn't really a big fan of the franchise system that I built. And I also did not like the ups and downs of the real estate industry. I personally prefer something that's recession proof. So my businesses that I launch tend to follow the path of being infinitely scalable, which really being a franchisee isn't suited for.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that is a disadvantage. You got to follow their brand. Like, for example, I believe if somebody were to buy a Chick-fil-A franchise, it's in the franchise agreement. You cannot be open on Sundays. I don't care if you got the capability. I don't care if
I
you got
know.
the staff. I don't care if you're in a high traffic Sunday area. Our brand is we're closed on Sundays. If you want in this brand, you have to follow suit.
Yes, and I'm working with a franchisor as a client right now, and their franchisees are upset that they have a restriction too on something that they things that they want to say in their marketing material that they can't because they're restricted from the franchisor because it's off brand. So there's constant disputes with franchisees trying to think independently that might have valid good reasons that would bring in leads and money, but they are shut down from their franchisor. So if you're really looking to start your own business, to be your own boss, maybe a franchisee isn't right for you because you will be accountable for and directed by the franchisor.
Absolutely. So to that point, what you do is you start a business model. You see a need, you start a business model, and so far you've been very successful. You are some people call themselves a serial entrepreneur, but and when you look at it, oh yeah, you started a business and then you stop working on it. Then you started another business, then you stop working on it. Then you start businesses, you sell them. Have you not purchased any businesses? Have you only sold businesses?
That's a good question. I have bought a business before, and I did not like the process. It turns out that no matter how much due diligence you do, they're selling most likely 99% of people are selling for a reason. Maybe they're capped out. The industry, you can't grow it anymore. There's an inherent problem. So I did my due diligence. I wound up buying a company. It turns out he was hiding something from me. It turns out the company, in so many details, it was built on Facebook ads, and then a couple of years ago, Facebook got rid of their cooking ability to cookie somebody for a long period of time. So all their revenue went away as soon as that happened, and then he panicked and sold it to me. Nonetheless, I did turn a profit from it, but it wasn't nearly the amount of effort that I could have put in building my own company. Wasn't worth it. So
Yeah. So sounds like in retrospect, if you are looking to purchase a company and you see their revenue, you want to see exactly where that revenue is coming from. And if that revenue is coming solely from or a majority from a entity like Facebook,
yeah,
maybe, just maybe, that might not be the best business to buy. And if so, if you do observe that, and you still like the business model, you may be able to use that as maybe negotiating leverage. Like, hey, I see that you're profitable, but Facebook is your only provider of leads.
yeah.
What if something happens to Facebook?
Yeah, that's you're at the mercy of Facebook or Instagram or any other platform. A lot of people come to me, they want to build like an Amazon business. They hear all these great things on social media, like I built passive income from an Amazon business, and I source products from China and I mark them up and I start an Amazon shop. Well, guess what? Amazon could shut you down at any time for any reason, and you will not get that store back. And that is, I have seen that happen at least 4 times in the last few years. Amazon, once your store gets good enough or big enough or popular enough, they're going to start their own white label product called Amazon Essentials and then basically box you out of it and take up all your traffic. That's what they do, and they have a right to do that. They're Amazon. They're a privately held company. Well, I mean, they're publicly traded, but they're privately owned, and they can do whatever they want, basically. And so that again is a business model that I would not recommend anyone doing unless you want a little fun side hustle that you don't mind getting shut down for, whatever reason, because you
So
have a lot of stuff outside of your control there.
So how does, all right, let's say somebody's listening to you now and they just realize that, dang, 100% of my revenue is coming from Amazon, or 100% of my leads is coming from Facebook.
Yeah.
Is there nothing that they could do like right now to start
Yeah.
mitigating that?
There is, and I've got a couple clients that do just that. I mean, they're starting their own Shopify stores and trying to bring in their own traffic. Amazon is great because they've got inherent traffic, and that's the biggest hurdle to getting a small business off the ground is getting that traffic, getting the eyeballs. And people like Amazon are like, well, that's the hardest part. Let me just throw it up there, a product up there, and see what can sell. But you have to, as a business owner, diversify your marketing a little bit and not just rely on Amazon so much.
Okay. So let's say you see a company that you want, and as you've already mentioned, you have that due diligence stage, right? But first and foremost, if you engage somebody and they either have a business broker or a mergers and acquisitions person, does that change the way that you engage with them? Does that not change? Do you treat them completely the same, whether their representation is business broker or mergers and acquisitions?
Yeah, I mean, look, if they have a business broker or an M&A specialist, then those guys are going to get a cut of the profits too. So there's definitely some factors there because you have someone who is a professional at selling you a business. That's what they do all day, the business brokers. And it's basically another barrier between you getting the information you need out of the business owner. And these guys are professionals at spinning information, bad information, the good information. I'm not saying that business brokers and M&A specialists are someone you should look out for, but remember, they're like car salesmen. You come into a car lot, they want to sell you a car. Their job is to sell you something. They're not looking for your best interest. You need to get your own business broker to help you buy a business to tell you what kind of due diligence you should be doing and what kind of issues you should be looking out for.
Okay, so if somebody is because you got the person that's selling and the person that's buying, it sounds like you're saying is if you are an individual looking to purchase a business and you're not doing direct business, direct conversations with the actual business owner, you're going through a business broker or M&A specialist. It sounds like you're saying in that moment you either need to be very careful or you need to hire your own representation.
Yeah, I mean, look, pretend like I'm suing you, right? You don't call my attorney asking him for advice on how to proceed with the lawsuit. He's going to tell you what I want to hear. He's not going to represent you. So yeah, definitely want to get your own attorney. Just like you're buying a real estate, you're buying some real estate, right? You're going to get your own agent to represent you for the due diligence and the escrow process. Same thing for buying a business.
Okay, so whether or not a person has representation or is doing this themselves, I'm assuming they're going to want to see some accounts, right? They're going to want to see some profit and loss balance sheets. What forms do you always either look for when you're about to purchase a business, or you understand as a person that's selling a business that a person looking to buy it are going to always want from the very beginning? Is there no forms that they always ask for or that you always expect?
Yeah, I mean, there are forms, right? But a lot of it is being able to think independently and creatively on what you need to do to grow the company if you were to own it. But you mentioned like balance sheet, P&L statements, profit and loss, and there's some other easy reports that can be pulled from QuickBooks or whatever program. You should always look at those. In fact, I wouldn't even consider myself an expert. I know how to look at those kind of stuff, but whenever I hire somebody on Upwork or wherever, for example, that specializes in looking at that, they always dig up certain things that I would have never looked at. Those are just people that look at those forms, those reports all day long and know how to pick out the numbers that you need to pay attention to. But nonetheless, you want to think of it from like, if I take over this company, do I have the SOPs in place, the standard operating procedures? Like, do I know how this company does this and that? Do I know how their employees are, or their independent workers are, contractors are treated? Do they get access to this or that? Do they have certain programs that help them do their job better? Like, you have to know how they're doing what they're doing to create the traffic and the conversions they need to create the revenue. And your job basically is to improve that. Or just to roll it into another company that you have. That's called a roll-up. That's something different. But if you're an independent small biz or entrepreneur, small business, and you want to buy something to either start or grow something you already have, then you need to understand that your job is to grow something that they are not able to grow, or grow something faster that they're not able to grow at a rate. So basically, you think that you can do a better job at building their business than they're doing right now. That's the ultimate job of someone who's buying a business. You don't want to buy something just because you think you can keep the status quo. Then you're going to be paying, usually the purchase price is 2 or even 4 or 6 years revenue. And you don't want to hold a business, be working for free for 2 or 4 or 6 years just because you paid a lot for a company. You need to be able to grow it to be able to pay off or make your money back as fast as possible to be able to have a profitable job or a business for you.
Oh yeah, I mean, because what you're saying is, all right, when you see somebody's business model, and if you're looking at it saying that, oh yeah, I'm just going to do the exact same thing that they're doing, you're already coming at it from the wrong mindset.
Yeah, yeah, that's not the reason why you buy a business. I mean, technically, if you have that leeway where you want to buy a business and you have a job or a steady income in some way, and you don't really need the return on your investment, then yeah, I mean, in 2 or 4 years, depending on what you paid for it, you'll probably get your money back. You have a nice business that's cash flowing. But who wants to wait 2 or 4 years? Who wants to work for something for 2 or 4 years for just to get your money back? Like that doesn't sound like a very good. You can get a job and make hundreds of thousands of dollars in that time. Like I don't see any reason why someone would do that unless they have a very abnormal circumstance or reason why they're buying that business.
Okay. So, all right. So, revenue, because definitely you're going to get to the difference. Because one thing that I remember coming up, even prior to me owning my first business, I'm like, well, they're always talking about revenue, but very rarely do I hear people mention profit, right? Which which there's a reason for that, right? A revenue is a huge number, but if you're not running your business efficiently with the good SOPs in place and paying people market value and all that stuff, it don't matter how much revenue you make. If your profit is either zero or in the negative, your business model is inherently flawed.
That's a general rule. Yeah, your business valuation won't be any better than someone who's profitable, worth 10 times less than yours, right? It's all about profit, right? So one of the greatest things that you can do if you're a business owner listening to this right now or watching this is if you're trying to grow the valuation of your business is to look into your expenses and see if you can automate that. And there's a lot of cool ways with AI now that you can automate or reduce hours for a contractor. But ultimately, it's that difference between the revenue and the expenses is what creates that value in that company. So that's what you got to look at. Is it's a lot easier to reduce expenses than it is to grow revenue on the top end. So you can go out and find more business, but the easiest thing is to look within your company and see where you can cut expenses to increase that profit.
Got it. And so I know that that you hire specialists from Upwork to look at the documents. Do you those initial due diligence documents, the balance sheets, the P&Ls, do you not statement of cash flows, do you not ask that business owner that's supplying those documents get it signed off by maybe a CPA or anything? Is that not a requirement of you?
It is, but not during the initial due diligence process. So the way that people buy businesses or should buy businesses is they have an initial discovery where you're getting documents that whether they're probably not going to be certified at that time because there's a lot of people, potential buyers are probably doing this too. They'll just pull some basic reports out of QuickBooks. Technically, if you're unethical, you could alter those. I've seen scams like that. But ultimately, when you're just doing your due diligence to see if it's a good fit, and it passes that level, like, hey, this could be a good fit for me, the buyer, you write what's called a letter of intent. And when that letter of intent kicks in, it's basically a signature, a signed piece of paper that you would write with a couple paragraphs that basically has a non-compete and all this other stuff that shows, once I get these documents, I promise I won't compete with you in this industry or in this company. And then they go ahead and they certify it through whatever, like a CPA or a CFO will notarize it, certify it. So now they're giving you documents that have not absolutely been altered by law. They can't alter them.
Okay, so does the letter of intent come before or after the due diligence?
Comes after your initial due diligence, right? So you'll do an initial set of due diligence that'll basically check off all the boxes on what you're looking for in a company. Let's say I'm looking for a SaaS company that has 10 million in revenue with under 10 employees, and they're in the construction industry, right? So I've seen your P&Ls, everything, all my criteria for the filters have checked off, and everything looks good. I don't see anything that would disqualify me from wanting to own this business. Then I write a letter of intent saying, I want all the data that you sent me and more that I've thought of since we've last talked. And here's my letter of intent. And it basically says, I intend to purchase this company should my due diligence work out. And if it doesn't, I will not compete with you because you're sending me all this data. So there's templates you can find online for letter of intent for that.
Oh yeah, and system as a that SaaS, that system as a service. I'm imagining that industry is exploding, right? Since more and more things are not necessarily tangible in this digital world. you're able to sell a system as a service to a lot of people, and something a platform that's probably a lot of people that's doing it is white labeling it, right? When do you, all right, let's say somebody's listening to this and either they are looking into purchasing a business, be it as a closely held company, or doing it through a franchise, or they've already tried and failed. They understand that they learned the most through failure and they want to do it again, but they want to do it with a professional. At what point does somebody engage somebody like yourself?
As early as possible. I mean, from the ideation stage. A lot of times when people engage me, I'd say about 80% of the time, it's too late. I don't want to say it's too late where I can't help them, but they've already made decisions that I wish they didn't make. But ultimately, the earlier that you reach out to someone like me or an entrepreneur coach, the better, because the earlier I get a hold of you, the earlier I can kind of put in my 2 cents and make sure you don't waste money or time when not just buying a company, but growing your company as well.
Oh yeah. So just so I know you got a hard stop. I didn't ask you nowhere near as many questions that I want to, but you've already said that I can reach back out to you and we're going to get a longer time, because I know people are very hungry for this type of knowledge, especially those who realize it's very wise to learn from somebody that's already bumped their heads multiple times. Like, what's the point of why fail when you can talk to somebody who's made wrong turns and figured out the right way to do things? I still don't get that personality type, but I know they exist. But it's people out there who have to make their own mistakes. Like that's the only way that they can learn. However, I hope that somebody listening to this in our future conversation understands that if you engage somebody like Mike Volkin, an entrepreneurial coach, you can save yourself years of heartache and potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That's well said. You can. I can't tell you. I mean, I can virtually guarantee that if you hire me, even for like a half an hour phone call, I could save you a lot of time and energy. I mean, it'd be worth the $150 just to get my feedback on something you're considering. Get some questions you might have about growing your company. There's so much new technology out there with AI that I'm on top of that stuff all day long. I educate myself every day. And unless you're in it like I am every single day from a marketing perspective and from a serial entrepreneur perspective, I think I could provide definitely some good insights that a lot of people can't.
And we're going to bring you back sooner than later for a longer conversation. But until then, how can somebody get in touch with you if they wanted to?
Yeah, good question. MikeVolkin.com is the easiest way. All my services, my fractional CMO services, entrepreneur coaching services are all listed there in detail on what I do. So it's basically my name, MikeVolkin.com.
MikeVolkin.com. Thank you so much, Mike. And you already offered. I'm bringing you back. Don't mess. I'm going to see if I can trick you into becoming a regular guest. I want to see if I can like it just seemed like, hold on, he just said another meeting. But all right, man.
You don't have to trick me. You're asking good questions, and I think the questions you're asking are very. These are the same questions that clients ask me on discovery calls, so I could just point them to your show for now on to answer these questions.
Oh, that's perfect, man. Thank you so much, Mike. We're gonna get this going again once we have more time. Thank you for being on the Entrepreneur Podcast.
Thank you.